Good afternoon and welcome to the Marketplace. The headlines this afternoon: inflation rate for the month of July increases marginally to 11.4% after going down slightly in June. Official liquidator for DKM Diamond Microfinance begins payment of validated claims of depositors. And later in the bulletin, the Telecoms Chamber rubbishes Communications Minister's claims of shortchanging the state. Details coming up shortly on your Marketplace. Welcome back to the program. I am SANDRA AFENU. The receiver for some defunct microfinance and savings and loans institutions says some depositors are yet to receive their payment due to delays in submitting claims. There have been questions about the number of depositors that have been paid by the receiver. Spokesperson for the receiver, Philomena Kujo, says work on their validation has progressed steadily and they will be paid as soon as validation of their claim is done.
I want to explain that before the deadline for submission of claims, we had received about 370,000 claims approximately. And so for those claims, they met the deadline of 18th October 2019. When we talk about the percentages that we've paid 98% of those claims, those who met the deadline. After the deadline, we have received about 120,000 claims, thereabouts. But when I say claims, I hope you understand, one individual can have about 3 or 4 claims. So these are not individuals, but claims. So that is what we've done so far. About 98% of the claims that were submitted before the deadline.
So these claims that came after the deadline, what is delaying? Why up to now they've not been able to get their share?
Okay, the claims that came after the deadline, of course you have to secure funding for that, to pay them, which I think they have. And then we need also to validate their claims, which we've done most of them. I think we are more than halfway through with their validation. And so when we finish clearing this 2%, we will start with those ones.
And when are we likely to finish with this 2%?
Executive Secretary of the Ghana Association of Savings and Loans Company, Chinibwako Diabuachi, joins me on the phone lines for a quick reaction to what the spokesperson for the receiver has been saying. Good afternoon, sir, and grateful for your time. Hello, sir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, grateful for your time this afternoon. Looks like there is a lot of challenges with this payment process. What exactly do you know?
Okay, good afternoon to your viewers this afternoon. Previously, we were not very sure of how many claims that have been validated and paid until the receiver actually mentioned that they've done more than 96%. And following that, as of last week, we had an engagement with the receiver to actually understand the whole situation. And just as the spokesperson mentioned, that the claims that were submitted before the timeline given, or within the timeline given, they said that they have processed all those and transferred to CBG for payment. And you will realize that there are some clients who also say that they submitted their claims way back during the timelines that were given. And so if they have not received it, then what's the problem? A little investigation we have done independently actually suggests that, yes, it's possible the receiver has sent those that they have validated for payment to CBG, but the clients have not received the text message and the account numbers, which actually shows that they are supposed to receive or go for their money. Another thing that also supports our claim is that clients are supposed to receive the cash component, then followed by the bond component. We realize that some clients have received text messages for bond component, and they have not received any cash. And the process is that you cannot be given bonds if the cash components have not been received. So, which actually tells us that there may be some systemic challenges with CBG and also with the receivers. Our recommendation actually is that the receiver and CBG especially should look at how they can flush out all those challenges. Because if clients have not received text messages or the account numbers, then the clients may see it as a bit of a challenge. The receiver actually promised us that he was going to follow up and actually ensure that all those that they stay in their system have processed for payment and all those things.
All right. Let me ask you, do we know the actual numbers of clients that have been paid so far, not in percentage terms?
You mean how many customers?
Yes, the 96% that is being said by the receiver, the actual number, not in percentage terms.
No, we don't have that figure. In any case, it's the receiver that received all those accounts. And you see, the difference is that this particular process, a customer may have 3 or 4 different accounts with a particular institution, and the receiver deals with them as accounts. So if you have 4 accounts, you will receive 4 different payments, unlike the one under the microfinance own, which they lumped it and dealt with customers. And so these are some of the things that we believe that CBG, in communicating with clients or those things, we need to have a detailed discussion on that. And our outfit is ready to ensure that everybody who was saving with the savings and loans companies, just as the government absorbed that of the commercial bank, we believe that all customers of savings and loans and microfinance companies should also be supported in one way or the other, just as they have promised with the bond and all those things. All
right, quickly before you go, I mean, the receiver says that 96% of validated claims have been paid so far. The president said 98%, whatever the figure is. Is it fair for them to say that, place a figure actually, or a percentage on the number of people when we don't know the actual figures?
You can't criticize somebody if you don't have a contrary figure. Right. And so we will not be able to say it's fair or not fair, but what we will encourage all the parties is that let's all work together for the betterment of the country and the client.
I'm grateful for your time this afternoon for speaking to us. Still on the banking sector, Exim Bank says it is optimistic loans disbursed to enterprises under the One District, One Factory initiative will be recovered. Chief Executive Officer Lawrence Ejinsam disclosed to Joy Business that some enterprises supported by the bank have since paid almost 50% of their loans. According to him, companies within the pharmaceutical and garment sectors benefited immensely from the COVID-19 situation due to the high demand for nose masks and pharmaceutical products.
We've only, as I speak to you, been able to approve about 119. That tells you the risk analysis and assessment that we go through for somebody, and you usually will hear a complaint, we've applied 1 year, 2 years, we've not received, or we've not have done some projects that are either in completion and some that are not completed. So we do not have many of our projects that have been completed. However, for those that have completed, most of them are repaying. For an Exim, we try to give a bit of leg room give moratorium for the period of construction, because ours is not buy and sell. Ours is a developmental, so we know the cycle when the person will be able to complete, and we then give, because for a long term, either 5 to 7 years or to 10 years, all these things are factored in. And it may interest you to know that also some of the companies were brownfield. So brownfield that either needed money to retool. So in the pharmaceutical space, almost all the pharmaceutical companies that we supported, to be able to acquire the WHO GMP compliance, they are already repaying. Because what we did was that they either were doing production or they were trading. So in helping them to be able to put up a factory, they have already a cash flow that will be able to support it. Yes. Currently, we even finance a garment company. And because of COVID, and they are doing PPE, you'll be surprised to know that that company that we financed almost 2 million has come to pay 50% of the money, about 1 million, just 2 weeks ago. So again, it tells you that our risk assessment is good enough for us not to be able to make sure, because at the core of what we want to do is to make sure at least the bank is sustainable.
You're still watching the marketplace. Inflation rate for the month of July has increased marginally. It went up slightly to reach 11.4%. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, the increase was influenced by some pickup in transport fares. Government statistician Professor Kobna Enim has been given more details about the inflation numbers at the news conference in Accra.
Observe that from the perspective of year-on-year inflation, combining both food and non-food inflation, we see that housing, transport, food and non-alcoholic beverages dominates the high inflation of 16.2% that we record for Greater Accra region for year-on-year inflation. Specifically, housing, water, electricity and gas has an inflation rate of 40.0%, which is distantly followed by transport, 14.7%, and closely followed by food and non-alcoholic beverages, 13.8%. In the context of food inflation and on the backdrop that we have Ashanti region and Western region recording higher food inflation relative to Greater Accra region, we observe that vegetables, fish and other seafood and tea dominate the inflation rate of 13.8% that we record for year-on-year inflation for Greater Accra region. Specifically, vegetables records an inflation figure of 24.2%, followed by 16.0% for fish and other seafood, and closely followed by tea with an inflation figure of 14.6%. Ladies and gentlemen, we share with you highlights of July 2020 rate of inflation and CPI. CPI for the month of July 2020 stood at 120.5 relative to 119.8 for CPI that was recorded for the month of June 2020. This translates into a year-on-year, that is July 2019 as the base year relative to July 2020 year-on-year inflation of 11.4%, which literally means that between July 2019 and July 2020, on the average, general price levels have gone up by 11.4%. On a month-on-month basis, that is comparing June 2020 with July 2020, inflation was 0.5%. This is the lowest inflation, month-on-month inflation, that we've recorded during the COVID phase.
Communications Minister Esla Owusu has said that the KELNI GVG system has since its inception saved the state in excess of over 300 million cedis as of July this year. Answering questions in Parliament, the sector minister said the new platform has given the Ghana Revenue Authority and the National Communications Authority a 24-hour surveillance, making it almost impossible for the telecom companies to bypass the system.
It gives us a saving of $1.1 million every month on the contracts as signed with KELNI GVG. Additionally, unlike the previous contracts, the common platform offers real-time monitoring of 2.5 billion transactions per day within the telecom sector, covering calls, short messaging services, mobile money transactions, etc. Although there was some level of monitoring by SUBA and AfriWave at the time, both companies primarily depended on after-the-fact CDRs, which are call detail records from the telecoms companies, and could not independently verify these numbers. Today, we have an online and real-time monitoring platform directly from the same information sources as the telecoms companies into the common platform. As the system independently monitors and verifies declarations from the mobile network operators and gives the NCA and GRA 24/7 full visibility on all transactions within the sector. Mr. Speaker, the fraud management component has from inception to the end of July 2020 made tax savings of over 327.3 million cedis. Over the life of the contract, the common platform is expected to deliver tax savings of approximately 799.6 million Ghana cedis. This comes with a state-of-the-art fraud management system known as TELCOM. Through this, the common platform originates 150,000 international calls into Ghana every month to detect fraudulent SIMs, which are automatically blocked.
So that was the Communications Minister Isla also on the floor of Parliament yesterday. However, speaking on PM Express, the Chief Executive Officer of the Telecoms Chamber, Ken Esigbe, said members of the chamber are unaware of the claims by the Communications Minister. He rubbished assertions that the telecom companies are shortchanging the state.
Since November, when we wrote to the GRA, wrote to the Ministry of, copied the Ministry of Communication, NCA Ministry of Finance, we have not, our members have not received the information. And for 9 months, there's been engagement that our members have had with the NCA, the GRA, Ministry of Communication. You know, there's been no, this issue has not been on agenda. You know, so the point we make and we insist on is that as an industry, you know, we have not under-declared any tax. So the potential of 470 million under declaration of tax that was mentioned, and then the estimate from the beginning of from 2015 up to the first quarter of 2017, and then the estimated 300 million that is supposed to have tax savings that had been made from the first quarter of 2017 up to the to date, the 300 million. So far as we as an industry are concerned, that has not happened. You know, and you would agree that the contract itself was signed sometime in the last quarter of 2017. So whatever would have been done to come to that 470 would have been also not from live data that would have been collected. It would have been from CDRs that would have been analyzed, you know. But the point we are making is that this information has not been brought to the attention of our members. And we have the firm belief that if that day the report is brought to us and we engage the partners who are involved, we'll be able to explain, you know, whatever numbers that they are seeing in that data with evidence of what has happened, you know, in terms of revenues that have been generated and as well as taxes that have been paid.
So that was the CEO of the Telecoms Chamber, Ken Ashigbe. But on his part, Member of Parliament for Ningo Pram, Sam George, challenged the minister to provide evidence to back her claim and possibly prosecute the telcos involved.
I asked a specific question related to a portion of the answer that suggested criminality on the part of the mobile network operators. When she said that these MNOs have under-declared their taxes, these are international bodies like, as Engineer Ken Ashigbe puts out, and they have shareholding structures and shareholders across the world. It is criminal for any individual or corporate entity to underdeclare taxes. That it's tantamount to tax evasion. And so I asked the minister in Parliament that if this was the case, how come we have not seen prosecution of the MNOs? Because you would want to see prosecution of any corporate entity that is evading taxes. Her response to me was that it's been referred to the appropriate committee or agency of state. I'll be interested to know what work has been done. So that would be a follow-up question. But I think that we should just state for the records that 1.5 billion Ghana cedis, which is around $300 million, is a lot of money. If anything in that neighborhood has been saved, we should have seen that as increased revenues to Parliament in the financials of either the NCA, of GIFEC, or the GRA, in terms of its revenues that it reported to Parliament. Because government reports to Parliament through the budget. And all of these entities, be it the NCA, be it GIFEC or GRA, all bring their reports to Parliament. In those reports, if truly there have been savings of 1.5 billion Ghana cedis, which is around $300 million, we should have seen it reflect in the financials of the state.
The Registrar General, acting as official liquidator for DKM, has begun payment of outstanding claims of DKM Diamond Microfinance clients. Government has released additional 317 million cedis to take care of these excesses, bringing the total the amount of payouts to around 646 million cedis.
You remember this payment started as far back as October 26, where creditors whose claims had been validated were paid a capped amount of 10,000. What it meant was all those who had claims below 10,000 got 100% of their claims. What we are settling now is those who were paid negotiated sums after the capped 10,000. Those sums were just negotiated. Some had 10% of whatever was remaining. Some had 15, some had 30, and some had 35. What it means is that they still didn't get 100% of all their investments.
So what about those who fall outside this category as well? If their claims have been validated, what is going to happen to them?
Once your claims have been validated, you will be paid.
Is there any targeted period that you're working with that, all other things being equal, we are hoping that by this period, we should be able to clear all these validated claims?
We are definitely working before the end of this year. We should clear all these validated claims.
And that would mean that you'll be closing the chapter in terms of all those depositors that have had their claims validated be paid?
We can only close the chapter when the last validated claim is collected. What it means is that money should be made available for them, and we are just hoping that they will make use of this opportunity to come and collect their money. Because you see, with liquidations, it can even go as long as 10, 15 years, depending. I'm still doing the liquidation of Ghana Airways. It's still not a closed chapter. So when you say, give me a deadline, I can't give you a deadline. Liquidation can go on and on as long as there are claimants out there who would come for their money, unless the money runs out. But I have some funds now to pay up creditors. So that is what I'm going to look at and work on.
On that Joy Business quick take note, we said bye-bye on the marketplace. Log on to myjoyonline.com/business for more business news updates. I am Sandra ESINAM AFENU. Thanks so much for watching and have a great afternoon.